Mike, would you do the Alliance roll call?
Jack Dorn, Joe Franco,
Here.
Stephen Gruder,
Here.
Pat Martin, Terry McBride, Kelly McKinnon,
Here.
Michael Gorman,
Here. He's here.
Bill Altoff, Bob Scholl,
Here.
Leonard Tovey,
Here.
Jim Vickery,
Here.
George Washington, Jerry Weber, Leo Whitten.
Present.
You have a forum, Economic Alliance members.
Would you all look at the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion approved. We have a second. Any discussions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Mike will give us the financial report. And I say at every meeting, that's obviously, this is obviously the EDA finances.
There were copies distributed for the May financial statements, so hopefully you have those. If not, you can take a look and share with your neighbor. For the month of May, we finished with cash on hand a little over $30,000. If you flip to the next page, or might get back, I think it's say paper. For the month, we reported just under $34,000 in rental income, and a slight loss of about $700 for the month. For the year to date, we actually have pulled current in terms of break even. We continue to work with two tenants who are past due. They're paying currently, but we're trying to make up some ground on those folks in terms of past due payments. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions about the financial report?
Motion to accept.
Your second.
Thank you.
Again, any discussions relative to the financial report? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next on the agenda, fortunate to have Representative Dugan here to give us some updates on what's happening in Springfield, other than what the press says and the TV says. So,
Yeah.
Representative Dugan.
First, as far as what was heard on the radio yesterday, I mean, we don't even know. We just got wind of that yesterday also. So there's certainly some problems in Springfield, as there has been between the leadership. But that's neither here nor there at this point, because that's a whole other issue. But the budget, I'll quickly talk about the budget. You probably have been hearing that, of course, the governor is saying that we need to come back and fix the budget because it's $2 billion out of whack. That is not necessarily so. It is depending on what the governor wants to say. He wants us to come back. He has now tied the budget again to the capital bill, which of course we were told he would not do. The budget bill truly is, as far as, you know, that when you do a budget in Illinois, as you do it in this type of thing, you estimate based on what you had last year and what you believe you're going to make. It estimates the dollar figures. Normally in Illinois, we look at about a $1 billion to $1.2 billion natural growth. That's kind of how we base our budget. That's how we based our budget, plus some cost-saving measures that we put into effect last year that agencies were supposed to do, that for whatever reason the governor decided they weren't going to do it. So we again said this year you will do it, which then would save about $500 million. And so as you look at the total budget in whole, it's the governor saying we don't have the $2 billion, and we, meaning the General Assembly, saying yes we do. You have to put into place the cost-saving measures that we, again, like I said, instituted last year that his administration decided they were not going to, and then the natural growth. So is there things that possibly he needs to, or he decides that he wants to cut out or change in the budget, he certainly has the right as the governor to do that. That's, he doesn't agree with the budget, that he can veto, he can reserve his veto based on, okay, well, I don't know that we're going to make $1 billion in natural growth, so agencies, this is how I want you to spend your money so we can see in the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And then if it looks like we're not going to make the revenue that we assumed we were going to generate, that's why we go back in November. If the governor then decides that he needs to veto some things out based on the revenue, then of course he can do that, and then we'll address it in November. But personally, from my own personal standpoint, that budget is not $2 billion low on revenue. That is, I believe, the governor's way to get us back into Springfield, which is fine. And I'll go to Springfield every day in the summer as far as I'm concerned. However, I'm still not going to agree to something that is not correct. And we've heard it now in the last few days. He wants us to come back, and within a day, we should be able to pass the budget and do a capital bill all in one day. And that he wants a capital bill, which is the main thing. Many other leadership, certainly my leader in the House, is saying, no, the budget is the first priority, and then we go on to the capital. As of yesterday, I understand the governor has decided that, yesterday he was saying, even to the media, that if we just pass the capital bill, all the problems of the budget would be taken care of, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, because capital money is not for the operating budget, but that's what he said. When they left the meeting yesterday, we were told that the governor has agreed that he now can fix the budget and the budget should move forward. I don't know what that means. I just know that yesterday the meeting was, we think we've reached an agreement with the governor on the budget. So we'll see how that ends up. In the budget, at least some of the things that were in the budget for this area, as far as probably one of the main things that we've talked about and I've worked on for the last 5 years that I've been in Springfield, and that's our transportation now. For our transportation needs, both for River Valley Metro, also now the show bus. The state of Illinois has for probably the last 15 years, if not 20, screwed downstate Illinois as far as transit, and our transit money would go to Chicago. They would certainly give us our portion. And because we accepted that portion, I'm not saying we shouldn't have, I'm just saying we probably didn't know that they weren't giving us everything they should have, it would go to Chicago. And we stopped that this year through the RTA, CTA, what they're saying was a CTA bill. We went in as downstate legislators, and I put an amendment on that bill to now fully fund at 65% reimbursement rate for all downstate transit districts, which includes River Valley Metro. I also insisted that the 15 rural transit districts that have been on the books of IDOT for years to try to get into this downstate funding program, and IDOT refused to let them in. And this governor refused to let them in. They became part of the amendment that I insisted that they become part of the downstate transit funding. And that is now law. That passed when we passed the CTA RTA bill. We were to get additional money here locally and all downstate. In the FY08 budget, we should have gotten it in January. That, of course, did not happen because the governor, for whatever reason, felt it wasn't time to release the money. I then passed a supplemental bill that last week we were there, and the governor now has signed that. All the downstate transit districts have been told as of just last week that they will receive the money from FY08, because I also increased the reimbursement rate for FY08 to 65%. We should have always been getting 55% every year. We're lucky in Kankakee and all downstate if we saw 45%. So we never got what the state statute said we should have had. And then when they had money left in that fund, they shifted up to Chicago. And the legislation also said from now on, if there's any money left in that fund, it will no longer be able to be transferred to Chicago. It has to stay in downstate transit so we can use it for capital improvements. So that's passed. The governor signed the supplemental. We'll get the extra money this year, which I hope means that the transit district here will be able to address some of the concerns that are happening right now in this area. And then every year from here on out, now they will be getting $1.2 million more for River Valley Metro. And Show Bus now will receive an additional $1 million. That's the Kankakee McLean. We're in with Kankakee McLean County with that but we will get more money for the Kankakee portion, which Shobus then has indicated to me, should allow them to add service and help with the Pembroke Hopkins Park area, which has been a concern of mine for a long time for transportation. So that's done. That particular part of it is over. We also put back into the budget the $150 million for the 24 schools that, of course, I've had in the budget every year for the last 4 years. The governor's just never released the money. And that, of course, will take care of Bradley and Mantino schools that have been waiting since 2002. And then there's other money in there. I do want to explain, though, as far as that budget. What we did was we took the needs that we had, and then we took the needs that everybody wanted. I think many of you were at the meeting that I held at KCC, listening to all the agencies and the groups say to us, this is what we need. And so we took what it was, explaining, of course, how much money was there, and that we were, and then took those wants and needs from all over the state and put them in the budget. Now, whether or not they're all going to be able to stay, but we're letting the governor know and the state know this is what the needs are, and we have to figure out how to do it. And if we're not going to do it, then we're not going to do it, but this is what we need. So that's the budget. Hopefully the governor will be taking care of it soon, and we're done with that part of it. The Illinois Works, which is the capital bill. Most of you know that we did not pass a capital bill. The Senate did. The Senate sent a capital bill over to the House. Just to quickly describe how the capital bill was set up, even though we had believed that it was not in the best interest to package it. The governor and the Senate sent to the House a package. It said you had to pass the gaming expansion bill, you had to pass the lottery, the leasing selling of the lottery, and the motor fuel tax and the road bonding one. Those revenue sources had to all pass in order for anything to pass. So in the House, which we knew, we did not necessarily have all of the votes for the selling of the lottery. A lot of people are not into that idea. They believe that if we can truly make 4 times more off that lottery, then we should be doing it and keeping it in the state, not giving it to a private investor. So we did not have the votes for the lottery. They knew that. But unfortunately, when you send a package and say it's either all or nothing, and when one fails, which the lottery portion of the revenue source did in committee, then it's pretty much over, because it isn't, we can pass this. Now, I believe that that's what we need to do. As I look at my, and I'm not going to go through all this, but as I look at it, just so you kind of understand too, the capital bill has changed, and it continues to change. We started off with a $20 billion capital bill. This paper I've got's got the 25.4 capital bill in the plans. This one over here has got the $30 billion plan. This one here has the $31 billion plan.
That's the one we want.
Yeah. And then Saturday night, the last day of session, at 6 o'clock at night, the capital bill went from $32 billion to $34 billion at 6 o'clock at night. That's and the reason that it went to $34 billion was because the governor decided to give Chicago a $1 billion slush fund for economic development, listing zip codes that, of course, were all in Chicago. There was also another $1 billion put into the mass transit system of the city of Chicago. That happened at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. So this plan, as much as there's been a plan, it has continuously changed and continues to change. There's been a lot of talk that people say, and I've been kind of beat up by a lot of people, including some people that I know were on the same side, that we just need to pass it and we need to worry about the details later. And I'm here to tell you that I won't do that. I won't do that because it changes completely. Now, everybody believes, because of what Denny Hassard and Clint Bouchard did, that the accountability provisions of this capital bill assure everyone that things are going to be done right as far as this $34 billion that the governor is going to have his hands on. And they believe that because, and I understand why they do, but there's a lockbox provision that Bouchard and Hassard said we have to have because nobody trusts the governor. So we have a lockbox provision, which means this money has to go into this lockbox. And that's good. And it only can be used for capital projects. That's the good part. Then you go on to the way that he's going to release the money, because the money is going to be released by the governor. Now, they say we're protected because there's going to be weekly meetings, and the leaders from the 4 caucuses are going to sit down, and the governor is going to review the projects. Each quarter, the governor has to give us a report as to where the projects are. And the release efforts, this is what it says in the capital program for the release efforts. The governor will make good faith efforts to release such appropriated Illinois Works projects as quickly as practical, based on the availability of revenues and sufficient bond authorization. And then the way that we supposedly are assured that there is absolutely no way that this governor cannot take these projects that we said that we want, is the memorandums of understanding. That the governor will sign a memorandum of understanding with all the leadership, the House, majority and minority leaders, same with the Senate. He will sign memorandums of understandings for these projects, outlining the agreements as far as the releasing of the bill. Now that may sound good to many, that, what he signs is, he gives his word, he signs a piece of paper, which is a memorandum of understanding in Illinois. Just so everybody understands right now, we have hundreds of projects for the last 2 years that memorandums of understandings are sitting in the governor's office, and representatives and senators that have signed those with the governor are still holding them, because that paper is worth about as much as the governor's word personally. So that is the guarantee, that many of us believe is not enough. It is not enough. I have met with, and one of the part of the programs was, they're going to put this all together, and then they're going to meet with us to explain the final product. And of course, since it's changed, monthly, and now it's up to $34 billion, but that was part of the thing. The caucus meeting was supposed to be held, and they were supposed to meet with us, and they met with us, as far as the Democratic representatives. They met with us Friday night and Saturday, the last day of session. That's when they met with us and had stacks of paper like this and said, okay, now let us explain to you what it is, and we'd like you to vote on this in the next half an hour. We could not get a list of the projects that were listed for any district until 8 o'clock Friday night, and some of us didn't get it until 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock Saturday. So as far as this all being out there, everybody knows that this capital bill is supposedly okay, and we have projects, which is what I want to talk about as far as this group. We need to make sure, as a group, as the EDA, that this is the way that, and I've been kind of put in the middle of some issues here, and I can't, I have enough problems with Springfield not understanding and living up to what they need to do and making sure that my district is represented and working together from that end. It is very frustrating working in Springfield, but I'll continue to do that and fight with those that think they're not going to take care of the 79th district or be fair in this $34 billion capital bill. But at the same time, I have heard from Springfield when I sit down with the governor's people, well, Lisa, your community, this is what your community says it wants. And I said, well, I'm not quite sure how my community can say I want it, because I've got my list here of what my community wants. You have not sat down with me and said, okay, we have projects, because the only thing that is on the project for Kankakee County portion of my district is 6,000 North Road. It is $59 million, which I have been told by IDOT, by the governor's people, and by anybody else that's been involved with trying to work with me to come up with projects for this area, that this is what my local community has said they want. Now, I know that the 6,000 North Road was on our list of 3 that we sent to the governor. I want to tell you that the list of 3 that went to the governor, neither the governor's office nor IDOT nor anyone else seems to know what that list is. Because that list, from the beginning, was a bullshit list. It was the governor trying to say, I'm out here wanting to know what everybody wants, and please let us know. And never even looked at it. And never even cared what was on it. So when I come with my list, okay, the way that this is going to be done, as much as some may believe that they understand politics in Illinois, I've been around politics as long as most of you guys have. And I'm telling you, in 30 years of being in the political circle, I have never seen anything like Governor LaGoya. He's from my own party, but I've never seen anything like it. And we have to, as a community, stay on the same page. We have to make sure that when we tell Springfield what it is we want, that we do it as a group and that all communities are involved. And if we don't, then we're going to lose, because what they say to me is, Representative Dugan, if you can't get your community together as to what projects they want, then don't blame us. Okay, so I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying this is the way it is. So I then got a list, and Mike and I have talked about this, and I think we're good. I got the list from the communities, because what I asked for, and the way I normally did it, was I talked to every mayor in my district, and I say, okay, give me your wish list. And I talk to the county, give me your wish list, and then I take that list and I work with Springfield as to when we start to see things coming forward. This year I did it a little bit different, and I went to Mike and I said, okay, since you have the EDA, then let's pull everything together with the EDA, and then we'll sit down. I want every mayor to give everything they want, and then we're going to all sit down, and as a region, we're going to say, okay, now what are our top 10 priorities? Because, I mean, I'd love to have it. The chances are pretty good we're not going to get $250 million in this capital. I'll try, certainly, but I don't know that we're going to get it. So we, as a community, need to say these are the top 10 projects, and I don't want to get into a fight with one mayor or another mayor, or somebody thinks they were left out. That can't happen, because if we do that here locally, I can only assure you, trying to fix things in Springfield is 100 times worse than what it is here. So when we go forward with the capital bill will only be approved by the House when the Speaker is assured that the representative, in my case of the 79th district, that capital bill is set up with the projects that I need and what I want before I'll vote on it. And so as we draft the bill, when we draft the projects, instead of a list like this, that's all the governor's stuff, this list has to show the projects that we're going to get from this area. And I can assure you, I believe, you guys can certainly tell me differently than the mayors, but I can believe that the only thing, if we're going to get $59 million, which is what 6,000 North Road is in the budget, in the capital plan, if we're going to get $59 million, with all due respect to engineers, who I also like, I am not going to take projects that are going to put a few engineers to work for a year and a half doing phase 1 and phase 2 of 6,000 North Road. The capital bill is supposed to be about projects, and it's supposed to be about work. I'm not saying do away with 6,000 North Road. I'm just saying that I don't believe, even in the list that we've had, the 6,000 North is our top priority. We have other priorities. And so this is what we're going to meet, and hopefully, but if I can't keep all the mayors on the same page, if I can't keep all my communities involved in this, give me their viewpoint, then I'm going to have to do it on my own as I used to do it. I don't want to do that because this is much easier. But we've got to make sure, because I can't have people contacting Springfield, whether it be my elected leaders or whatever, saying, you know, upset, you know, and so we have to decide on a local level. And I'm going to ask that the EDA please understand that and make sure that we have everybody on the same page. In the last time I got some money released, this is just an example of what happens. I got money released for Pembroke Hopkins Park for the sewer project, and this was a couple of years ago. But this is what happened. I got the money released. I finally got the money released, the $400,000, and within hours, the governor's office is calling me in to tell me, Representative, you said you needed this money, because it was when NOVAD was there, and I got that money released. He said, your mayor just called from Hopkins Park, and he says they don't want the money. I said, what are you talking about? They don't want the money. Well, what it was is it was a township, and it was the village. And the township wanted sewer lines, you know, it was for their sewer project. But the village, because the sewer plant wasn't working right, they didn't want the money used to add new sewer, which makes sense. They wanted it to fix the sewer plant. Good idea, but the problem was there was no communication. So I got the governor looking at me saying, as I do IDOT, saying, you know, hey, Lacey, you better go back and talk to your people, because your people are telling us the opposite of what you're telling us. They told me, and IDOT told me when I sat with them Saturday, that this community said that 6,000 North Road was their priority. And I said, well, I don't know who told you, but I'm telling you as the representative of that area, I am not accepting 6,000 North Road and that $59 million for this district to only do engineering studies or to only work on 6,000 North Road. Now, that may not agree with you guys, and you guys can certainly tell me if it doesn't. But if I'm going to get money for this district, one, I want people to get to work, and two, I want projects that are imperative to this community. I also want to make something also very clear. This governor was the governor, as we all remember, as we all think that possibly we can work with, or it's okay, Lisa, let's worry about the details later. And that this was the governor that stood out in Hopkins Park and Pembroke and said, I'm stopping the prison, but as long as I'm the governor, I will do whatever we need to do to help this area succeed. Now, I was there and many people were there. This governor, one, I don't even know half the time remembers what he says, but two, I talked to him about this capital bill, and I said, Governor, out of all of this, I see nothing about Hopkins Park and Pembroke. And I says, and I haven't seen Hopkins Park and Pembroke in any of your talks. The only time anything we've got road improvements and those kinds of things is because I have forced them into the budget. And I said, but yet you're talking $34 billion, and you're telling me that you then just gave an hour ago a slush fund to Chicago for $1 billion for economic development because they need it. Where is 60944 in those zip codes? And of course he looked at me because he doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. And I said, that's Pembroke Hopkins Park, Governor. Remember? Do you even remember where it's at? So I'm here to also let you understand that one of my goals since taking office in Springfield was making the governor live up to an area in my district that certainly needs, that we all know, needs the help it needs. So as a region, we have to make sure we don't ever forget that. And we have to make sure, and when the governor looks at me, and I was not very friendly with him, when he looked at me and said about a list from this area, and he said, well, Representative, Hopkins Park and Pembroke must not be that important. Your community doesn't have it on any list. And I just about lost it. That's when I walked out of the governor's office. And I said, you know, you want me to take your word, and this is the kinds of things, and I don't think I'm representative, I'm just telling you from my end. This is why when people say the House of Representatives, and I've had this conversation with, like I said, very good friends of mine that say we have to pass it because the governor and what the governor is saying, and Hassard and Bouchard have a system in place that guarantees everybody in this state that this $34 billion is going to be equally shared. There's politics, and then there's bullshit, and I'm telling you, this Illinois works the way it's drafted right now is bullshit. And anybody can blame Speaker Madigan or anybody else they want to. I don't care if Speaker Madigan brought this to me and said, Lisa, we're going to vote on this. I would tell the Speaker to vote on this. I am not voting for a capital bill. That is not a guarantee. It does not address issues in this state that it needs to address. So that's all I got to say about that, like I said. But what we need to do, guys, is we need to make sure that, and if for whatever reason, and I'm not saying it's the EDA or anybody in particular, I don't know and I don't care. But the fact is, I've got a $34 billion capital plan that we're going to try to move forward. It may be less than that, depending on the revenue sources. I'll be honest with you, are we going to expand all these revenue sources? No. There is no way. The gaming expansion that was passed to us from the Senate, they gave the Chicago their casinos and the mayor, the stuff he wanted. The mayor came out against it. The mayor doesn't like it. The gaming bill that includes the things for Chicago. Now, I'm a little bit confused as to how you pass a gaming bill that addresses needs of Chicago, that Mayor Daley standing up and saying, I don't want the gaming bill passed. So, you know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to push it fast, and I understand because it's been 9 years. But also understand that what we're looking at doing here that some of us have a problem with is selling off assets. Selling off assets and putting this state into debt that will take us into a 5-year program, okay? And then just like when George had the $12 billion capital bill, good program, got the revenue source, went for 5 years, and then it was done. Because the state has a knack of wanting to do it and not understanding that, you know, then we'll have another 9 years before we have a capital bill, just like we do now. So we have to make, and you don't start selling off assets. For a 5-year, everybody's happy because we get to do construction and we get to do road projects. And then in 5 years, we're sitting in the same damn place and still don't have any money. And now we've sold off assets to do it. And we can't ever go back to those assets again. So it's about being fiscally responsible in one way. I mean, that should be the first thing, but sometimes that doesn't work in Springfield. But it definitely has to be that this governor and the Bouchard, which I give Bouchard and Hassard, you know, I applaud them for what they did. They understood that there is no trust with this governor, and they believed that that particular part they put into place was going to solve the problem. It does with the lockbox, but it does not with memorandums of understanding. I have told the governor, I want in statute or in legislation, I want the capital bill to say X amount of percentage will be released every year. If I get $59 million for, not that I think that's enough, but let's just say I sell it for at least the first year for that. If I get $59 million and it's a 5-year program, you know, or a 6-year program, then I figured, okay, then I should get about $10 million a year to bring back to my district to use for whatever we think we need to use it for. Or we have the projects in place and then we let it go every year. Let a percentage go out so it's fair and every area gets it. Well, they say, well, Representative, we never really thought about that. I said, well, maybe we need to because you know, I'm not going to wait 3 years to get projects just like other people in the state. And we don't have it in place. And right now, the only thing that guarantees anybody that the governor is going to release projects, first, that he'll even put the projects on the list, because they're not even on the list yet. Second, that he'll release them once they are in that lockbox, is the governor's word. That is the only thing we have. And as much as I want a capital bill, and as much as I certainly want to bring things back to this area, I will not give him access to $34 billion, basing it on the fact that his word is he'll make sure that everything is fairly done. I won't do it. And so hopefully as we go back, we will say, you know, they will finally realize that this is still not enough, and if the governor truly wants a capital bill, then he's going to have to make a few more tweaks. So that's where we are. Not, you know, not real good news, not real bad news, but I think I've also, some of us have suggested that we take the revenue sources that we're able to pass, the road bonding out of the road bond funds to bond the program, to at least get the federal money that's sitting there that we need to get. Do the revenue sources that we can. The capital bill may start off only as small as, or as big as what George did. And then in the second year, we'll see what other kind of revenue sources we come up with. We do know we need to grab onto the federal money, and maybe we need to do it with just one revenue source. But unless the governor and the Senate changes their mind, their capital bill says everything or nothing. All revenue sources have to pass or none of them. And as long as that's held over our heads, I can assure you we're not going to have a capital bill, because there's not enough votes in the House to pass it. You know, to pass all the revenue sources. And nobody from Chicago is going to vote in the House against Mayor Daley. So if he doesn't want the gaming expansion the way it's drawn up, then they're not going to vote for it. So it's not quite as simple as, you know, as the fact that many say, and I'm not defending the speaker because he doesn't need me to defend him, but many believe this is only because of the speaker that won't call the bill. This is not about the speaker. This is about representatives that he is the leader of that says bullshit. I am not agreeing to a bill that has nothing in it for my district and no assurance that I'm going to get the money or the projects. So that's where we are.
Lisa, what's the timeline on budget for release, but I understand to be $9 billion from the federal government?
Well, that according to Durbin, the money just won't go away. Okay. We have heard from the governor's office, we have heard dates starting last October that it was going to go away. Then it was going to go away in January of this year. Then it was going to go away in June. Now they're saying that it's going to go away in October. All I can go by is what Senator Durbin told me, which is, yes, you need to get that money, but it's not like it's just going to disappear. And so, you know, we believe, at least the last date we heard, they were talking about the end of this year. Some are not in agreement with that. So, I don't know, except for listening to Senator Durbin. The governor's office has given us 4 different dates of when we're going to lose the money, and then that date goes by and we didn't lose it yet. We need to grab onto that money. There's no doubt. And that's why, if nothing else, we need to do the bonding program using the road fund, you know, as the backing for those bonds, so we can grab onto the federal money. And see, and that's something that we suggested, and I think we may get closer to that as we get back, because now people are starting to understand, if you can't pass the other revenue sources, then don't sit here and just keep putting it all together and saying, if you don't pass it, we're going to have it, we're never going to have anything. Let's do the bonding program with the road funds and some other monies that we can guarantee the bond, and then let's grab onto that federal money. At least we'll have that, and at least we can move forward, and then we can talk about the lottery, and it's maybe some other ways of doing it, as far as, you know, additional revenue source to grow on this capital plan like that we have, to get up to a $34 billion one, if that's what we believe that we need. So I think Mike is working with the, and I don't see any of my mayors here, but, Mayor, hi Mayor. So that we get them together. This list that I got from Mike, and this is very good because I think we did get something. I think the only thing we didn't have was Mayor, I think we didn't have dollar figures for your stuff, but we can always throw something.
Right. We did get, I sat down with them,
Right.
and we did get that together, yeah.
Okay, so we've got the total list, we've got projects like the KCC and those types of things, and we were, like I said, we're looking at 200 and something million. I think.
I was trying to get to 3, but.
Well, maybe it is. And remember that part of the capital bill, the road program, remember, the road program portion of this is only about state highways. You know, they're not about, you know, the Cardinal Drives or the, you know, the Armor Road. Those are state highways. But then in the multi-year plan, I do have good news. In the multi-year plan, we have about $160 or $70 million for this district, for Kankakee County, in the multi-year IDOT plan. Proud of it. Which they're also trying to, it kind of falls in with the capital plan, but it really doesn't. But the problem with that is the same thing I got with the capital bill. You know, when I talked to IDOT, I said, okay, he said, Lisa, here's your projects. You got 45 projects, $160 million. I said, well, great. I said, how do we let those projects out? How do you release those projects? Well, that's something that certainly we can discuss as we go forward with the capital bill. And I said, well, for example, here's Armor Road, the 45 to 50. And you know, the Armor Road thing that the state of Illinois made with Bourbon A years ago. You know, you take the road, we'll fix it. They said, yeah, okay. That was 9 years ago. It's number 9 on the multi-year plan, this project, the Armor Road project. So I said, okay, well, okay. For example, here, this has been on here for 9 years. I said, which means it went from one multi-year list to another multi-year list. So I said,
right?
so yeah, and that was back, yeah. And I said, so is this project then, with all this stuff we're doing, will this project like go before these other ones that have been on here for a year or two? And they look at me like I'm nervous. They go, well, no, Representative, there's no guarantee that this one will go before this one. I said, well, what kind of guarantees it? And I said, who lets out the projects tonight? The government. And I said, so even though I have $160 million in projects that we need, that's I think what the Cardinal Drive thing is, the Armor Road thing is, a lot of different projects in there. There's still no guarantee, so that's part of this whole discussion too. We've got to have, we've got to be able to trust them. I know people are getting tired of hearing it, but I don't know how else to explain it except nobody trusts him. And you can't trust him because he hasn't lived up to anything he said so far. And but he needs it. He needs to have a capital bill, and we all do it. He knows that. And so he's just going to have to, I just wish, and it's true, the speaker doesn't go to the meetings because the speaker isn't going to be before him. He knows they're completely worthless because all the governor talks about is, let's just go ahead, and we'll worry about the details later. I have had said to me hundreds of times by this governor, Representative, if you'll just do it, and we can look at the details later. I said, no, here's my list of projects, and I'll give you the top. They looked at me when I gave them this, they kind of laughed. I said, Representative, probably will fit the spinning. And I said, well, at least you'll have the list, but I said, I'll pick out the ones that we want as far as priority. And I said, and then we can kind of go from there. And he says, the governor came to my desk on the floor and said, Representative, I understand you know that we have your list. I said, you've had my list for my district for 4 years. I mean, you know, that's what worries me about this governor. I said, but yes, now you've got the new list. And I said, and he said, then this is great, Lisa. He said, I'm sorry I couldn't get you a list of what your projects were. And this is everybody in the House reps. We did not even see what he even had planned for our district until Saturday, the last day of session, when he upped the capital bill by $2 billion and then wanted us to vote on it. So, you know, he's just, I don't know. I don't want to talk negatively, but the speaker is to the point where the speaker won't vote. The speaker sends his majority leader, and then we take it from there. And that's where we're at. So it's not bad news, but it's not real good news. We'll have a capital bill. I just don't know how big it's going to be.
you obviously, the way we're trying to do this and building some consensus, is we're plowing new ground in our area.
I agree.
And it's obviously something that, we're going to try to get to a point where we can build as much consensus as possible. You and I had talked about the idea of going back to the mayors and seeing if we can come to some idea of what the regional issues are and concerns. So I think that from that perspective, at least, I think that, we're going to take this, my thoughts here, and I'm going to get some feedback from people if this would be the way to do this, but taking those lists and asking the mayors to possibly rank the top 5, their 5, whether it's just all in their community or outside the community, and however that comes out in the wash, that's what you will get in terms of what the mayors are saying about the community itself. And that way I don't know how, I don't know if that's the best way, but I'm just thinking, if we want to get a pulse of the community as in terms of the mayors here and the leadership, that's possibly, I'm just thinking that's maybe a way to go.
And that's like I said, and that's what I had asked for first, every mayor to give a list to you guys.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to take that list, put it all together, and that's like, this is the master list of everybody in Kankakee County, of all my mayors, the leadership in the county. And then, all the mayors need to sit down at a table. The leaders have to sit down at a table, and we have to decide, as a region, now, what are our top 5 or 10 priorities as a region? I understand every mayor has the responsibility to their community. But when we start looking at capital programs and states, when we start looking at 6,000 North Road, when we start looking at 350 interchange that are already here, that everybody doesn't have an interchange, but when we look at the benefit to the region, we have to decide as a group what we believe is most important. Because if we don't, and if I go ahead and say, okay, let's go with 6,000 North Road, and then Mayor Kent says, what the hell you mean 6,000 North Road, 315 is also, of course, on the books as a project. Mayor Green, I've heard for years we need to get 312, with that study done. So I realize everybody has their wants and their needs, but understand that one, I don't want to be the one to decide, and nor should I be the one to decide out of this list of 100 projects which ones I'm going to give to that list. That shouldn't be my role. I'll sit down and work with you and meet with all the mayors and meet with the county and say, okay, understand, one of the things we have to do is make sure we bring jobs along with whatever we put on the list. So we have some priorities that we want to make sure of, things that may be more of a priority in our area because of, one, if it'll benefit economic development, or two, if it's a project that will benefit a community, which then will, you guys know how this works even better than I do. But we can't, well, we can't. If we're going to continue, if we cannot bring everybody together to pick projects, then I'm going to have to just go back and try to do it myself with the mayors. That's all I'm saying. Okay, because I've got to have the input of all my communities. I will not choose. Because if I had to choose for like member initiative projects right now, as I have some in the past and spread it. But if I had money and somebody said for economic development, where do you want this to go? I think you all know where I would send it, and that would be out to Pembroke and Hopkins Park. That's just what I would do. Because I believe this state is over. Pembroke and Hopkins Park, ever since this governor took office, effective before that. But there are things that we need to do that wouldn't Pembroke and Hopkins Park wouldn't qualify for the money because they don't have a state road. So therefore, the capital projects are broken down in areas. But I have got to have all the mayors on board, and certainly the county. So when it comes, I never again get a call from the governor's office like I have now about 4 times since I've been in office. It says, Representative, this is, we know we got your list of your project, but this isn't what your community says. And that just doesn't work. And that's what the EDA, I know that we're trying to bring it together. And if we can't do it quick enough, and then I'm saying that it might take you guys a little longer, however you want to do it. But as far as this capital, either EDA pulls the mayors together in the county so that I can meet with them and we can all meet with the list so we can all understand what we gotta do here, or I can do it. And I'm not saying you have to do it, I'm just saying I need to know, because this capital bill, as I move forward, I can't wait, you know, for 2 or 3 months to get down to the top priorities of this region. And understand some are gonna be, but you know, if you all sit down and you agree, these are the priorities, even though I know Mayor Greenwood probably wants something first before Mayor Kent, but you know, this is about the region now, guys. This is about all the communities in this region when we look at capital. And we're going to have to come together and decide what our priorities are going to be as far as projects. And then I can fight for those in Springfield and make sure nobody again says to me, Representative, this isn't what your community wants. When I have this list and it's agreed upon, then if anybody comes back and backdoors stuff, that's what makes this thing hard. I got a governor that backdoors every damn day of his life. I can't have it from local communities, you know, from the local community. And I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, please try to understand. And I know, Mike, that this is kind of something that we've all known. As long as we've lived in this area, there's been disagreements, and there's been people, and some people don't like other people, and I understand that. But I ain't got time for it. It's bullshit when it comes to the $34 billion capital bill. And if we want our share, then damn it, we need to come together and figure out what we want so I can fight for it in Springfield. That's all I'm saying.
First, I mean, I'm confident that the local communities can come together to give you a list, but I can tell you on the street, there's not a lot of confidence that with the fractionalization at the state of Illinois and a budget that hadn't been passed in 9 years, what makes us believe that this year there's going to be the ability to pass a capital budget?
I don't know that there's going to be. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that there's going to be. I'm saying all of us want one. We just need to, I think what's going to end up happening here is either the Senate and the House, as we've done in the past as far as regular budgets, just work together and pass a budget, and then the governor, you know, we've done it without the governor before. I don't want to do it without the governor necessarily, but we've done it without the governor before. And if the governor will not sit down and realize that what he's doing or what's not going to work, and we as the leadership, whether it be the speaker or the Senate president, I mean, you know, their egos are just unbelievable, all three of them. And, you know, they need to come together, but they're also not going to come together until they all understand, you know, are willing to give some. The speaker will not give in unless his members say, this bill's fine with me. So, but even if we don't get to it till the end of the year, you know, or we get to it, we'll go back to veto session or spring session, regardless of that fact, we need as a community to be ready, because I'm telling you, you guys see how fragmented it is. It could change tomorrow. I could get a call tomorrow and say, come back to Springfield. The governor's decided, okay, whatever you guys want to do, we'll do it. And we could be running back to, you know, we could be going back tomorrow. It changes our, hell, the size of the Capitol bill changes our. So all we have to do is make sure that we're ready with our project list, at least, you know, from the end of, if it comes up, this is what we want. Because the document has to be drawn with the projects in it, Jeff. See, that's what it's not done now. Right now it just says this many billion for school construction, this many billion for airports, this many billion for whatever. The only thing that's really in there is the road projects. It's the only thing that's broken out. And that's where we have 6,000 North Road. We, the legislators, say we want this all broken out. We want to see the list. That if you're going to put money into runway extensions and those types of things, I want to see the list to make sure that Kankakee Airport's on it. You know, if I see civic centers, if I see what I see on this list, it's all just billion-dollar group monies, you know, just lump sums. That's not good enough for us. And unfortunately, as much as some may think, oh, we should just do it, we're not going to. I'm not going to give lump sums to the governor just under airports and hope to God he uses it right. Then he doesn't put it all into, you know, Chicago or something, you know what I'm saying? We have needs too, and that's all we're asking for is a list.
Say mayors got together and selected 10 projects, and then 5 out of those 10 projects were put into a bill. What would happen to those other 5 projects? Would they remain in priority so that they would be moved up the next time it came?
Yeah, and as we change, let's just say if something happens and we change our priority, or, you know, or a particular project gets done some other way, because I'm just talking, I mean, we're talking all projects, but when I'm talking about this capital build road project section, this only is about, you know, state roads. But there's also the school construction money, then there's also the local government money, and then there's also the money that the county will get, that McCarsick will get through the new formula that they have where the county will get money. Now, that might be some of the MPO projects, which could also be one of our top priorities, you know. So it's kind of like there's like a bunch of lists, because the road projects, only state road projects are going to fall under this, what they're saying, road projects. And we've got some, you know, but I don't know, the water and sewer plant in Hopkins Park, Denver. Okay, in the capital bill, there's water and sewer improvement lump sum of money. Okay, I want that project. So when you guys say, here's my priorities, I'll see what group it needs to go in. So when I'm going to try to do the list with the governor's people, I say, okay, the road projects one, I want this, if I have 3 roads. In the water and sewer, you know, water and sewer, I want Hopkins Park. In the airport money lump sum together, I want Kankakee Airport expansion. That's what I need to know. They're not going to give me everything I ask for, but I certainly want to be ready so that I can make sure in every little group we're in there if we need to, and I can fight for why my project is more important. I shouldn't say not more important, but take priority over something else. And as long as that governor sits there, and even the next governor sits there, I am not going to allow money to go for economic development in Chicago. I don't mind if they have some, but I'm not going to allow him to give $1 billion slush fund for economic development in his areas in Chicago, which I understand needed too, and not even include, not even think about it. Hopkins Park of Denver.
Principally, you want a tight consensus from Kankakee region, and no backdoor going to the governor independently trying to get something different than what this project is.
Right, and I'm not saying that you guys don't want, if you want to go and talk to the governor, I'm not saying, you know, Mike or Carl or anybody wants to go, or Joe. I'm not saying you can't talk to the governor or the IDOT. I'm just saying, but if we're going to, let's all be on the first page, and then say, you know, Lisa, IDOT called and we're a little bit confused about this and that, and we'd like to talk to them about maybe changing these 2 projects or whatever. I don't have a problem with that. It's just that when I've got to understand, because like I said, and they lie. You know, governor lies. You know, he said, Lisa, this isn't what your community tells me. You know, well, I'm going to tell, and I tell him, you know, my community doesn't even like you, governor. So I said, you know, tell me. But I have to make sure that it's true. You know what I'm saying? I got to make sure that when I get money released, that the mayor's not going to be calling the governor and saying, I don't want it. What the hell are you doing? So, I mean, and that's just an example of what I mean. And I just think we need to all be on the same page. And it's not about fighting amongst communities. It's not about a Republican, Democrat. It is about the fact that we are looking at finally a capital bill again, and I want to make sure we get our fair shake. But I need to make sure that we're all on the same page, and I'm hoping to be able to do that through EDA. And if not, then I'm going to have to do it as I used to do it when I call all my mayors and sit down and have coffee with each other, one of them individually, and come up with a list, which is what I've been doing for 5 years. So, and it falls into some other categories too, KCC and those things. And I'm sorry, it's a lot longer than 15 minutes.
There are, we really appreciate you coming. I'm sure there's a lot of questions here, but I think we already know what the answers are. And I'd like, in the interest of time, to move on unless there's something really important in your mind to ask the representative. But boy, I think we've heard enough.
They don't probably just keep coming.
And if it's okay, we'd like to move on with the rest of the program, unless you got something specific. And then we'll have time a little later on, hopefully, to go back to the representative. At this time, though, we'd like to call upon Mike Van Mill to do this report.
I'm going to be very brief. I had a number of things I wanted to go into with each one of these topics, but I'll just do that. I'll just go through what we've been up to in the last month or so. If you've been on our website in the last about 5 days, you're going to see that it's updated. It's got a new design. We're working on making sure that it's easier to navigate through, and we also are making sure that we're getting out there and getting the links that we need to, both for us to get links to organizations and get those organizations get those links to us, and that's been working out well. One of the biggest things with the website that we thought was important is that we also give ourselves, that when people go to it, they can see where we're located, both in the region and in the United States. We didn't have that before. It gives us a little better of an identity, and that's going to be a process that's going to continue over time, and we're going to see where that goes. This week we met with a company in the Kankakee area to talk to them about expansion. They're going to be doing a $2 million expansion here in the near future. We were with Ed Pyatt and Tim and I. Looks very good. We were talking about the incentive programs in the county. That should be announced in about a month, or within the month. I also am a member and have attended the Will County Inland Port Task Force. We are looking at what the intermodal facilities and the growth of intermodal facilities means to us, both in the negative and the positive ways. We are putting together a scope of work study for a consultant who